source, baka baka yun. Kasi effective talaga raw ang ivermectin.
Daw.
May mga gigan sa sa India, merong
Kami yung precaution namin, kami exposed talaga kami. Pero si Pastor Louie at saka si Pastor Bobby nag sa amin mag ivermectin. So gidadaan ko ni Pastor Louie og ivermectin. May giting sa kumangkon. Ug nako 2 days straight, then interval dayon og every 3 days or 1 week.
Yung mga exposed.
Exposed man gyud mi. So naggawas ang swab result gihapon. God's grace, negative ni. So it works siguro sa lang precaution.
So hindi, baka yung we were just making use of the time kasi we're waiting for you.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my Wi-Fi for some reason. I apologize. I don't know where.
That's because of the fiber, Pastor Tim.
The fiber.
That's because of the fiber. Maybe the wire in the fiber got eaten again.
I don't know. Anyway, I was just saying the importance of finding the right balance in communicating, and poetry is going to help us, I think, with that. And I was just was conveying a story about, there's an interesting story from American history. One of the founding fathers of the United States, Benjamin Franklin, he was not a Christian. He was a deist. He believed in a higher power, but he didn't necessarily believe in the God of the Bible. But he was very interested in a Christian preacher named George Whitefield. If you remember, George Whitefield was a British pastor who came to the United States and actually was used by God to be involved in what was called the Second Awakening in the United States. There was a huge revival back in the 1700s and late 1700s. And George Whitefield would just go around and preach, and he was known for preaching with great passion and great skill and great quality. Well, Benjamin Franklin, would follow George Whitefield around. Whenever he heard George Whitefield was going to be preaching somewhere nearby, he would go and listen to him. And one of the things Franklin said about George Whitefield is this, and always stuck with me. He said, "I don't believe a word that man's saying, but I know that he does." And so, unfortunately, Franklin did not believe, but he recognized that George Whitefield did. And because of the way he preached and the passion and the conviction that he preached with, convinced Benjamin Franklin, that George Whitefield he believed what he was saying was true. And I think that's the best we can do, men, is to preach in such a way that our hearers say, you know what, I don't know if I agree with him or believe him, but I know that man believes what he's saying. And the Holy Spirit will use that. And yeah, we have to be careful that we don't manipulate, that we don't, play with emotions, or that we don't emphasize. But we need to communicate the truth in such a way that it is understood from our hearers that we are speaking the truth, that we believe it's the truth. And I think in poetry, it gives us an opportunity to see the emotion of the text and try to convey that the same way the author did. That's all our goal is to identify the author's intent and then communicate that truth in a way that our hearers will understand. So we have to bring it from the author's day to our day. And in the case of poetry, it's also bringing the author's emotion to our hearers as well. And so just look at this as a great opportunity to be stretched if this is not, your natural personality. but I think it'll be good. So let me just briefly summarize the 3 elements of Hebrew poetry quickly, and then we'll stop for this morning. So let me get back to the notes for a minute. Here, where is? Okay, so we're going to come back to this quite often and look at and discuss the elements. And really, there's 3 primary elements when you talk about Hebrew poetry. The first is called terseness. That is, it's the use of brief, short statements. Succinctness will be another word. Pithiness. That's just the idea of communicating something with an economy of words, with a short use of words. Hebrew poetry, biblical poetry, is known for that, of expressing ideas in a very compact way. I think Sid mentioned that earlier this morning when he was talking about poetry. Hebrew poetry is very much that way. That's one key element of Hebrew poetry. Another key element is structure. That is that there's intentional, compositional, I'll call it, features, such as stanzas that are used. There's structure. There's units of thought that are conveyed in a poem. Like in an epistle, a unit of thought is the paragraph. In a story, a unit of thought is each scene. In a poem, it's a stanza. That's a structure of the poem. There also, another structural feature is called parallelism, which we're going to talk about next week. Hebrew poetry, one key characteristic is called parallelism, where one line of a verse has in some way a particular connection to the other line. I'll give you more details next week. Acrostics is another poetic structure. An acrostic is intentionally beginning a word in each verse in a certain pattern, right? Like we tend to use acrostics in our preaching, right? If we were to say, don't be a bad preacher, that is, don't be boring, don't have an attitude, don't be dumb. I don't know, I'm making this up. Don't be a bad preacher. Okay, that's an acrostic. I intentionally chose words that begin with a certain letter so that I could spell out a particular name. Well, you'll see this in Hebrew poetry. Often what's done in Hebrew poetry is it will follow an alphabetic acrostic, where it will begin one verse with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the next verse will begin with a second letter, etc. All right? So that's a structural feature that is found in poetry. And then a third element is imagery. Imagery. The idea of pictures being drawn with words. And often the use of figurative language comes into this. Okay? So whenever I ask you, okay, what are the 3 elements of Hebrew poetry? There's terseness, structure, and imagery. All right? Now in English poetry, we would add there's rhyming often used. Okay? That's not the case in Hebrew poetry. You won't see rhyming being used. That's more of a Western element of poetry. So poetry, if in my context here in the United States, if I use the term poem, people think rhyming, that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, Hebrew poetry doesn't have that element, all right? So it is made up, but all poetry universally contains imagery, all right? Figurative language. That's common among almost all forms of poetry. In Hebrew poetry, we're looking at terseness, structure, and imagery as 3 elements, 3 key characteristics of Hebrew poetry, all right? And so next week when we gather, we'll just begin to look at each of these elements and see how that is shown in Hebrew poetry, the terseness, the structure, and the imagery. Okay? But I'm going to go ahead and stop there since it's almost noon, and we'll pick up next time together. And, oh, by the way, I have updated the Canvas. So I've put all the reading assignments in Canvas for you. In Canvas, I will put the notes and the videos. All right, so you can access them there more easily. So once I upload the video and the notes, I'll let you guys know. I'll still post them on our Facebook message, but I'm going to have everything on Canvas so you can have access to it. And one thing that we're going to do different with this module is I want you to be doing the assignments as they're given. So for example, I gave a reading assignment for this week. I want you to go online and pick that up and read it, and you'll have 2 weeks to do that. Unfortunately, I was looking at it today and somehow half of the pages got flipped upside down. So I'll try to fix that, but I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. But I want you to stay on top of the assignments. I'm spreading them out, and the first assignments are going to be just reading. All right. So the first 6 assignments, I think, are reading assignments. All right. And then once we get enough into the study of poetry, I'll start giving you your written assignments and give you the passages you're each going to have. And I want us to try to stay with those assignments and not get behind. All right. The assignments are intended not to be, take you a lot of time every week, but if you wait, then it will take a lot of time to do. So for this week, look on Canvas for your reading assignment and get started on that. Okay.
That's usually the problem, Pastor Tim, especially the PDF that were sent the last time.
Yeah.
They were sideways, and especially with the laptop, it's not convenient because we have to turn the laptop like that. So
Yeah, I apologize. I'm gonna.
it's
Well, if you lock your
cumbersome.
screen, yeah, I'm gonna try to. I don't have access to the machine right now to read. All my books are in boxes. I haven't moved in to my house yet.
There is feature in PDF. You can change the position of the page.
Yeah, you have to purchase you have to purchase a subscription to get that feature. I don't have it on mine. So
it's free, the PDF.
Yeah, but
you can turn it.
It's under document. There has to be a feature called document. I don't have that on mine.
There is no rotate. There is no rotate feature in the PDF.
There is a rotate.
Rotate.
You can rotate it to view. If you have the file on PDF, go to view, and under view it'll rotate the page for you. You just say rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. So at least when you read it, you can rotate it each page. So that feature's on the free version. You're correct. But
we will rotate the document, not our laptop.
Either way, right? You can.
That's what they're doing.
But if it's more convenient to rotate the laptop.
Yeah, if you just go to the upper left corner and it says view, and then under view there's an option to rotate the picture. So that'll just take you a second to do that. You can rotate it and read it, and then when you go to the next page, you'll need to do it again. Because I don't have access to my books right now to re-photocopy the page. I may look into getting the Adobe feature that will allow me to actually orient the the document and save it that way. So anyway, I apologize for the inconvenience, guys, but you can rotate it on the
Okay.
reader without rotating your computer. Okay. Well, thank you,
Pastor
men.
Tim,
What's that?
short request, Pastor Tim, because I have one question.
Yes.
It's outside our class. This is regarding Israel, because we're just wondering, especially me, I was wondering how is the news in Israel uh, reaching your place, because here on this side of our planet there seem to be a confusion going on regarding the news, most especially with this Al Jazeera, because the way they are conveying their news, it's like they're pro-Palestine, and Israel is being discredited. So we were just curious, how is the news